Hey guys, thanks for tuning in with me again. So last video, what we talked about mostly was the paradox, which is that in today's world, it's both easier and harder to achieve extraordinary productivity. So today, what we're going to be talking about is the premise and the promise. So the premise is that we all have the potential to be extraordinarily productive. And the promise is that there are 5 choices that we can make, and if we make these choices, it's going to help us reach that extraordinary productivity. Okay, and those 5 choices, I'll read them off, are stay focused, number 1. Number 2, clearly define the outcome that you're working towards. And number 3, the important stuff comes first. Number 4, accelerate rather than hinder. And number 5, constantly renew your energy, which means, not just starting the day off with energy, but doing things that give us more energy to keep us going. So today we're mostly going to talk about number 1, which is stay focused. And there's 2 behaviors that go with this. The first one is discerning less important things from actual important things. And number 2 is creating a Q2 culture. So today we're mostly just going to be talking about the first part of that, which is discerning what's important from what's not important. The main idea is that in today's world, you feel like you have to say yes to everything, when really we need to remember that it's okay to say no. Don't say yes to everything. I know for me, I sort of went through a phase where I kind of wanted to be a jack of all trades. I sort of wanted to be good at everything, be an athlete, be an artist, be a designer, be a pet owner, all these roles. I was putting myself in all these roles, when really what's best to do is to narrow it down and focus on, just a few things, and really just stay focused. So what we tend to do a lot is when an issue comes up, like may it be a text or some kind of deadline, we tend to act right away. The problem arises and we act. What we're trying to learn to do is that instead of acting right away, we need to really take a second and take a minute even to ponder the new thing that's popped up, and to really don't take too much time, but just sit there and actually think about it before you act, and that'll really save you a lot of time in the long run. So you might have a lot of friends. I know I have ADHD, and I have a lot of friends who have ADHD, or at least are diagnosed with ADHD. So you have to wonder how many of us really have ADHD, and how many of us have what Franklin Covey referred to as a severe case of modern life. Okay? So ADHD, if you have ADHD, you're really impulsive. You can be pretty disorganized at times. You procrastinate a lot. So those are some symptoms of having ADHD. What they call a severe case of modern life is your life is like it's in a frenzy, and you're distracted, you can't sustain mental energy, you can't stay focused at one task for more than a while. It's kind of like ADHD, but it's not in your brain, it's actually just the way that you're handling the tasks that are coming at you for the day. And so what we have is we have 2 parts of our brain. We have the executive brain and we have the emotional brain. So I'll go ahead and show you this image. It's going to be backwards for you guys, but you can see here we have the executive brain and we have the emotional brain. So for the executive brain, that's associated with things like productivity, planning ahead, being prepared, paying attention, self-control, and making choices. And that's probably the part of our brain that we don't use as much, but that we should use more. Our emotional brain is at the back of our brain, and that is associated with being reactive rather than proactive. So it's emotional, you're reacting. We tend to get stuck here because, we tend to just react to things as they come to us when we really should just be taking that moment to sit and think and, take it in before we act. We're addicted to being in this part of our brain. We're addicted to trivial things like texting, phone calls, other things like that they pop up, and we're addicted to, we think it's so important that we need to pick up our phone right now and take care of that text. So what they're trying to focus on making us do is be more choosy about choosing, and rather than working on 3 or 4 things at once, we need to focus our attention on what we're doing at that moment, and then the things that pop up, maybe you write them down or remember them for later. One thing is that people think multitasking is so great, and we have all these, apps and even electronics that just allow us to multitask. And sometimes it can be really important to multitask, but in general, you really want to be focused on one thing at one time. And, multitasking is a little overrated sometimes. And so we're not going to go into the Q2 culture today. I'll save that for the next video, but we are going to talk about discerning the important from unimportant. So you hear me say Q2 culture. So basically they have what they call a time matrix, and it's 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So Q2 is where we want to be, and this is associated with things like being proactive, planning ahead, focusing on your high impact goals, creative thinking, prevention, and then my 2 favorite that they touch on that's actually kind of specific is 2 things that belong here are relationship building and learning and renewal. So that's like personal development or whatever you do to, further your education and just become a better person or learn more about what you're doing or whatever it may be. So this is where we want to be. Where we happen to spend a lot of our time is Q3. Q3 is the things that I keep talking about, like gravel and your text messages and email notifications. So these are distractions. These are interruptions, unnecessary reports, irrelevant meetings, other people coming to you with their minor issues, that aren't super important, or unimportant emails, texts, phone calls, status posts, anything like that. Now, number 1 is similar to Q3 in that it comes up suddenly and it's sort of a deadline, but these are the things that are more important, like a work deadline that you really do need to get done right away, or other pressing problems, crises, emergency meetings, other unforeseen events. So it's okay to be here, it's okay to be at Q1, but you really want to try to plan ahead and spend enough time in Q2 that you're not in Q1 very often. Q4 is another time that another quadrant that we spend a lot of time in. It's not necessarily bad. It's only bad when you're excessive about it. One second. Had to let my cat out. So Q4 is, they call it waste because you spend time there but you don't really get any return from the time you spent there. That being said, relaxation is important, and it's totally fine to relax in moderation. So what they are talking about in Q4 is trivial work, avoidance activities, excessive relaxation, and time wasters, like chatting or scrolling through your Facebook feed or gossiping, other stuff like that you really just don't need to be doing. So those are the 4 quadrants. If you have any questions about, what kind of stuff goes in which quadrant or anything like that, let me know. But in our next video, we'll be talking more about these time matrix quadrants and why we spend time in some quadrants more than the other, and what brings us to those quadrants, and what we can do to spend more time in the Q2 quadrant. So thank you guys for joining me, and I hope you learned something, and I'll check in with you guys soon. Bye.